Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for coming to our class today on, again, just on Vipassana Mahamudra, looking at the emptiness of the mind. So I realized that I didn't recite the Heart Sutra last week. I just went right into it. So I like to start again. It's kind of a little bit tradition of us, and I think it's always really good to do as a blessing to do the Heart Sutra. So we'll start with that here. Okay, homage to the perfection of wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I've heard it that at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgiri and Mass Vultures Mountain together, great assembly of monks and nuns and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great beings, looking perfectly at the practice of profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then to the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence, form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are empty as having no characteristics. They are not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there's no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There's no I element and so forth up to no mentality element, also up to no element of mental consciousness. There's no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance and so forth, up to no aging and death, no exhaustive aging and death. Likewise, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly. The three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest, complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal and the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it is not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayata Gada Paragata Parasamgata Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, Bodhisattva, great beings, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good, O son of lineage, is like that. Since it's like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed. Okay, great. So a little meditation on emptiness there before we start. And now we can start with our, again, Gyema practice. And so we can just take a moment to visualize ourselves in a wide open space, beautiful ground like lapis, sort of like a vast, almost infinite plane that we're seated on. And we're surrounded by all sentient beings meditating with us. So people we're closest to first, and sort of moving out from concentric circles outward to all the beings that we don't know or are connected to personally. So first of all, we can visualize our mother on our left, our father on our right, the people we love the most behind us as support, and people we like the least or have issues with in front of us as objects of compassion and healing. Now, moving from there outwards, we have humans from all different places in the world, different backgrounds, all here together as a family. We have countless beings from sort of the natural ecosystems, environment of the animal realm. Again, anything very, very small up to very large, from the oceans, the land, and the skies. In a similar way, in the spirit world, all the Bardo states, elemental planes, astral ethereal realms, all these different spaces within spaces, so to speak, we can have all the different spirit beings. as varied as beings in the animal realm. Celestial beings, gods and demigods, or suras and asuras, and countless beings in lower states of suffering existence. We can think of all the different hungry ghosts and hell beings here with us together, meditating. A beautiful dome of a blue sky above us, and just in front of us is Tashita Pure Land. So above and in front, we're getting a vision. Beautiful Pure Land of the Universal Buddhas and Buddha of Wisdom, Manjushri. So this is a gorgeous, gorgeous place. Sort of Pure Land of Bliss. And, they always say, like our sadhana here, hundreds of deities of the land of joy. So this sort of joyous land of Ganden or Tashita Paradise. All the countless Arya beings that are here, just like angels, countless ones. We're all going to be interfacing with them. So in this beautiful land is a little town. In the center of it is kind of like a cathedral or big church, big temple. Doors are open, we can see in. And in it is the Buddha of love and kindness, the fifth universal Buddha, Maitreya, wearing a crown, seated on a throne like he's about to step down and step into this world to come and teach Buddhism. And we sort of eagerly await this kind of time because when it does happen, sooner rather than later, we don't know when, but sometime soon it's prophesied that this will inaugurate a sort of a time, a new sort of golden time of the Dharma and peace in the world. So he's a golden body, and his hands are in the turn of the wheel of Dharma Mudra, holding two white lotuses with the Dharma chakra and initiation pause on them. And then on our left or his right is the founder of the Old Tsongkhapa school, the New Sarma traditions, one of the New Sarma traditions in Tibet in the 11th century, Atisha, Deepamkara Vijana, beautiful Indian guru, 3 robes of monk, yellow pants hat in lotus position. And again, his hands are in the turn the wheel of the Dharma Mudra. Then the other side is the founder of the New Tsongkhapa school, sort of in continuity of that tradition of teaching. Tsongkhapa, our founder, the Gelugpa tradition, and the way we usually visualize him. So he's on our right, or Maitreya's left. 3 robes of monk, yellow pennant's hat, turn the wheel of Dharma Mudra, holding 2 white lotuses. Again, on the lotuses are the Prajnaparamita text and a flaming sword. And now at Maitreya's heart, we visualize a golden eternal knot that becomes sort of beautiful white clouds. And on the white clouds again are Tsongkhapa and his 2 heart students, the way we usually visualize them. So if you even have a little picture here, the ones we can always sort of see, that's the one you usually see in tankas and so forth. And so on Tsongkhapa's on the top there on the line throne, and on our right, left or his right is Japa Gyatso, the first Ganden throne holder. And then the second Ganden throne holder, Kidrupche, on our right, or Tsongkhapa's left. So all 3 have robes of a monk and yellow pennant's hat. Tsongkhapa has to turn the wheel of Dharma Mudra. And his students have the teaching mudra, just with their right hand, and their left hand they're holding a Dharma text. So just looking at Tsongkhapa, just to show that Tsongkhapa is the emanation of the 3 Buddhas of wisdom, compassion, and power. Crown of his head is, we can visualize Manjushri on a moon disc here, and he's a beautiful bodhisattva form, lotus position, holding a flaming sword, the threatening mudra with his right hand over his head. Hands 3 jewels mudra, holding a white lotus, the Prajnaparamita text, golden body and a crown. At his throat on a red lotus in lotus position, white colored body, beautiful silks, a crown, little antelope skin is Buddha of compassion, Avalokiteshvara, Chenmo, holding with forearms, first 2 holding a multicolored gem or jewel at his heart. And then holding a white lotus and crystal mala with his other hands. And then Tsongkhapa's heart, Buddha of power on a sun disk, and that's Vajrapani, sort of dark blue on fire, having snakes kind of like ornaments. He's got a crown, tiger skin, and sort of like threatening standing mudra. And he in the threatening mudra, he's holding his right hand, dorje, golden dorje, and left hand, threatening mudra at his heart, holding a lasso. So if you like, also you can visualize Jampa Gyatso's heart, Avalokiteshvara as well, showing his emanation of Buddha of compassion. Kejupche has Vajrapani at his heart, showing he's the emanation of Buddha power. Okay, so refuge is in English here. I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulated from practicing generosity the perfections, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulated from practicing generosity and the perfections, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulated from practicing generosity and the perfections, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. Now, generating the four immeasurables of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, may all beings have happiness in its causes. May all beings be free of suffering in its causes. May all beings constantly joy in transcending sorrow, and may all beings store equal love for both those close and distant. Holy invocation of Tsongkhapa and his two students. From the heart of the protector of the hundreds of deities to the joyful land, to the peak of the clouds like a cluster of fresh white curd, all-knowing Losang Drapa, King of the Dharma, please come to this place together with your two chief disciples. So upon making that request, just the clouds sort of come towards us. I always say like rolling a yoga mat. They start to come unfolding, bringing Tsongkhapa, Japa Gyatso, and Kejupche before us. And we can sort of see, if you sort of take a look for a right, you can see the clouds leading back into Maitreya's heart, into Pure Land of Tushita, or Ganden Pure Land. So literally they're an emanation of this Pure Land. They're bringing this Pure Land here to us right now with their teachings and presence. So now they're fairly close, just almost like a little cranes come down to lower them to us. So just so they're right in front of us here. In the space before me, in a lion throne, lotus and moon, the venerable Guru's smile of delight. Supreme field of merit for my mind of faith, please remain for 100 aeons to spread the teaching. Your minds of wisdom realize the full extent of objects of knowledge. Your eloquent speech is the ear ornament of the fortunate. Your beautiful bodies ablaze with the glory of renown. I prostrate too, whom to see, to hear, and to remember so meaningful. Pleasing water offerings, various flowers, sweet-smelling incense, light-scented water, and so forth. A vast cloud of offerings, both set out and imagined, I offer you supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtues of body, speech, and mind I've accumulated since time without beginning, such transgressions of my 3 levels of balance, with great remorse I declare each one from the depths of my heart. In this degenerate age, you strove for much learning and accomplishment, and by the 8 worldly concerns, you made your leisure and endowment meaningful. All protector, from the very depths of my heart, I rejoice in the great wave of your deeds. In the billowy clouds of wisdom and compassion, the space of your enlightened minds, venerable holy gurus, please send down a rain of vast and profound dharma, appropriate to the disciples of this world. May the Vajra body, created from the purity of clear light, free of the rising setting of cyclic existence, but visible to the ordinary viewer only in its unsubtle physical form, stay on unchanging without waning until samsara ends. Through the virtues I've accumulated here, may the teachings and all living beings receive every benefit. Especially may the essence of the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa shine forever. Offering a beautiful mandala, purified universe, to the merit field here. This mandala is built on a base resplendent with flowers, saffron, water, and incense, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 lands, sun, and moon. By offering this pure mandala to you, assembly of Buddhas here before me, may all living beings experience pure happiness and be reborn in the Pure Lands. The objects of desire, aversion, and ignorance, friend, enemy, and stranger, my body and all possessions, these I offer without clinging for your enjoyment. Please bless me and all living beings to be released from the 3 poisonous minds. Send forth this jewel mandala to you, precious gurus. So now for the mantra, we can just visualize, it's like sunlight coming from the hearts of the 3 gurus here. Sunbeams coming down for us and all sentient beings. We can also visualize for us kind of like needles made out of light from their hearts come and join at the crown of our head, like 3 little straws. And golden nectar is coming into our body. So just like orange juice or mango juice, when you pour into a glass, filling it up. And we can also feel just almost like little sunbeams in the light going, blessing all sentient beings, and in the nectar for us, are all the different sort of symbols of all the different wisdoms that we can have. And so, like quick wisdom, clear wisdom, profound wisdom, wisdom of debating, writing books and teaching and so forth. Visha is sort of symbolized by little sparkly energy, bits of energy here, like the mantra of Manjushri, Arapatsanadi, the D letter, DHI, little Buddhas like Manjushris and Maitreyas, little flaming swords, wheels of swords turning around, eliminating negativity, Dharma books, and so forth. All of this sort of filling our body. Looks like our whole body's made out of like a gel now with all these little sparkles in it. As we're internalizing this blessing. We can just sing the mantra together in English, which is, you are Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of unimaginable compassion. Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, in Vajrapani, Lord of the secret, destroyer of hordes and Mars without exception. Tsongkhapa, crown jewel, the sages of the land of snows. Losing Drapa, I make request at your lotus feet. Meg me say wei ter chen chen rei zi. Pri me kien pe wang po cham pen. Du pung ma lu chom se sang wei dan. Gan chen ke pe sun kien song kan pan. Lo sang tra pe sha bla so wa de. Big me say wei ter chen chen rei zi. Pri me kien pe wang po jam pao yang. Du pung ma lu jom se sang wei dan. Gan chen ke pe sun kien song ka pa. Lo sang dra pe sha bla so wang de. Big me say wei ter chen chen rei zi. Pri me kien pe wang po cham pao yang. Du pung ma lu chom se sang wei dan. Gan chen ke pe sun kien song ka. Lo sang dra pe sha bla so wan de. Feeling all that mantra energy and blessing energy in our bodies. Now we can just visualize that our heart now appears like a little tiny, about the size of a dime or so in our central channel at our heart chakra. A 8 petaled white lotus with a little moon disc on it flat. So the verse is here for the absorption. Glorious and precious Guru, please come to the lotus and moon seat at my crown. In your great kindness, please remain with me. Please bestow upon me the blessings of your body, speech, and mind. Glorious and precious Guru, please ascend to the lotus and moon seat at my heart. In your great kindness, please remain with me. Grant me your common and supreme realizations. Glorious and precious Guru, please remain in the lotus and moon seat at my heart. And in your great kindness, please remain with me. Please remain till I achieve the essence of enlightenment. So upon saying that, making these requests, we can visualize that the whole merit field starts to dissolve into golden light. So the sheet of Pure Land melts into light here, just like light of the sun on a lake. The sun setting or even just rising, and you get like a lake. I used to see this all the time as a kid in Northern Ontario, where the sun's on, well, here in Nelson too, I guess, but the sun's on the lake on the waves. It's very, very beautiful. It all starts to melt into Buddha Maitreya, and then he becomes like a golden sun and then starts coming towards us here, sort of gathering up all the clouds and melts into Tsongkhapa. You can feel that all the clouds and lion thrones mount into Tsongkhapa, and Japa Gyatso and Kedrupche turn into golden balls of light that dissolve into him too. And now Tsongkhapa gets really, really small, about the size of a sunflower seed or so. You can just feel again, there's the three little Buddhas at his three places: Manjushri at the crown, Avalokiteshvara at the throat, and Vajrapani at the heart, showing he is the emanation of all three Buddhas of wisdom, compassion, and power. It sort of comes down to the crown of her head, turns around the same direction as us, and very slowly, like a leaf falling. It's made out of energy or light, so he can enter our crown chakra and slowly starts to descend to just like a little helicopter landing on a pad. He lands in the center of the moon disk, lotus of our heart. And once he does that, just feel that the lotus starts to close up, just like, a lotus or a tulip at night closes or closes. And you got two little mantras, almost like tying it shut, like if you tied a little thread around it and tied it into a bulb. Top one is Obarapat Sanandi in gold, Manjushri's mantra, revolving clockwise, and then below it, counterclockwise, Tsongkhapa's mantra. Om Guru Vajrasamana Kirtisiddham. You can feel that all of Tsongkhapa's blessing, the blessing of him and Atisha and the old and new Kadampa traditions, all of our teachers to this moment, all the power and wisdom and compassion of the Buddhas is directly and sort of injected right into our hearts. Yeah, so we can just meditate here for a few minutes, and you can just more on Mahamudra, just sort of let this sort of goodness and love and spaciousness come into us. But we end up having what we can sort of rest in the natural state, which is sort of rest in a relaxing way, an aware way. So we can just let thoughts come and go as they please. And just like we're being a mirror here, you just set a mirror up by the side of the road on the highway and just reflecting all cars, people walking by, birds flying by, not judging, just allowing. Okay, so just slowly coming out of meditation now. Okay. So continuing our class here from last week, just sort of some teachings just on Mahamudra or emptiness of the mind. Again, more from the Vipassana method, I guess, sort of just doing concentration meditation, shamatha Mahamudra, we're just sort of using, future we'll use our concentrated mind, tranquil abiding to examine these kinds of issues. Okay, so so again, I might have mentioned this before, but I've got a few notes here. Again, just definition of Mahamudra or Great Seal. Seal in this case is emptiness or ultimate truth, and greater is the highest of all things. Because, so in other words, why is this the highest? Because once you perceive emptiness, it stops all suffering. So just like I said, the seal would be the seal used by the king, or in the old days, people used to use seals, which is why it was so important never to lose your seal, because then people can sign off and do whatever they want with your seal. It looks like it's coming from the king or sort of the government person or whatever. So all things are sort of sealed or stamped with emptiness. And so this is sort of the greatest truth, the greatest revelation in your spiritual path, and also Mahamudra as a methodology or as a way of teaching here is the greatest, because obviously the emptiness of the mind is the greatest realization you can get. We can try and find the emptiness of things like the emptiness of malas or whatever, but the emptiness of the mind, the emptiness of yourself is the greatest realization for enlightenment, because all the troubles you have in your life start with yourself, obviously. So, of course, there's two types of Mahamudra, open and secret, or Sutra and Tantra. We're, of course, doing the Tantric one. Tantric Mahamudra, I should say Sutric Mahamudra, is what we do most of the time when we're meditating together. We're using the coarse mind to meditate on the mind. When in Tantra, in particular in Zogrim or completion stage, you're isolating your most subtle mind of what they call mind of clear light or Rigpa or whatever you want to call it. When that mind meditates on the emptiness of itself, that's when you're doing Tantric Mahamudra. So that's very specific. As you know, with Tantra, basically letting the cat out of the bag, you can see, but once we dissolve all your prana into your central channel and it abides and you have an experience of clear light, then we meditate on emptiness. So we're not there yet, needless to say. So we're not, that's all secret. It's easy to be misinterpreted. It's easy to sort of go down the wrong path if you don't have the correct instructions of that. And that's why you have to sort of train in Tantra to be able to go to that. But that is 10 times more faster and powerful than using your coarse mind to meditate on the emptiness of the mind, because the mind of clear light has no, it has no distractions. So we don't have, what dogs us all the time is our diluted mental factors of sinking or tiredness, dullness, and excitement or being distracted. So what's good about Tantra is once you start training in that is you bypass those problems. And so the realizations go quicker. So that's, of course, my pitch for people to practice Tantra rather than just doing a wonderful meditation like this, which is Sutra Mahamudra, which we all know and love. And when you're waiting in line at the bank or on the bus or grocery shopping, it's the perfect thing to do. We love Mahamudra. I love Mahamudra, Sutra Mahamudra. But of course, if you have the chance to get enlightened in one lifetime, you should take it. And of course, Tantric Mahamudra will allow you to do that. And anyway, my teacher, David Gonzalez Sangsering, he told me that years ago, Lama Zopa Rinpoche was telling him to do that. He said, he's like, David, like, why not realize emptiness in 4 months? What are you waiting for? Like, just do completion stage and it'll come in a matter of months. Why spend your whole life messing around doing tranquil abiding with Sutric Mahamudra? I've always remembered that. I thought, oh my God, 4 months, that's it? That's amazing. But of course, you have to be a very good practitioner to be able to get it in 4 months. Anyway, so the advantages to studying Mahamudra, there's 4 of them. which is one, it's easy to bring the object to mind. It's easy to meditate on the mind. Why? Because that's our whole experience is basically meditating on experience itself. So your life is like a movie, just like a flow of experience. Why not take that as the object? Like rather than trying to find something sort of exotic that seems to exist external to yourself, why not just focus on the theater of your life as it is, your mind, your experience anyway? It's easy to find. It's right here. This is it. You are it. Why not take that as the object of your study? Number two, focusing our mind, therefore, it's easy to eliminate subtle dullness. And that's what you see is actually with, pardon me, it's a flight attendant for 30 years who's in a perpetual state of jet lag. Subtle dullness is my life. That being spaced out quality is basically me 24/7. And so I've always found that that's just like they say in meditation, pardon me, a delusion you have to watch for, because subtle dullness is just when your meditation isn't vivid anymore. There's no energy to it. It's just flat. But again, you're holding the object of meditation still, and you're relaxed. So it seems like you're a great meditator. But the point is it's a diluted mental factor. You're not meditating. You're diluted. But it just seems like you're a great meditator. Like I say, and that's why they always say that it's the most subtle, most pernicious form of delusion, because it actually looks like you're doing a good job. And I find a lot of times, especially when I'm overseas meditating, I have that dullness. And I'm just like, wow, man, I'm like the best Mahamudra guy. And then I realize after 20 minutes, it's like, I'm just jet lagged. And then I remember that comic, American comic and talk show host, Bill Maher, that always says about spiritual people, you're not spiritual, you're just stoned. And that's sort of the thing is when you're jet lagged, you're not spiritual, you're not Mahamudra, you're just jet lagged and you should go to bed. So usually though, if you can have a good Mahamudra practice, you'll see that Mahamudra in particular, better than let's say just focusing on the usual shamatha or shine objects, like let's say visualizing an image of Buddha, for instance, meditating on your breath. Oftentimes with those, as we know through our own experience, subtle dullness is present. Whereas Mahamudra, the mind, meditating on the mind, what you notice right away is there's a vividness to it. There's an energy to it when you actually do Mahamudra that other meditations don't have. So it really is an antidote to subtle mental sinking. So that's a really good thing about it. Number three advantage, eliminating distraction. Mental excitement goes to, and again, you'll see that if you're allowing your thoughts to come and go and not being attached to them, you are not fighting your distractions, which is what you're usually doing when you're meditating on your breath or anything else. Like when you sit Zen and you're sitting there, I've done that at Zen centers in New York that I love Zen, but Zen and you're just sitting there watching your breath and all your sort of thoughts are coming at you and you're sort of struggling with them. That means you're, like me, a bad meditator. There's, that sort of exhausting. And as you know, with gross mental excitement, the more you fight your distractions or fight your distractedness, that itself becomes a distraction. So it ends up producing more thoughts. So rather than being sort of, unfabricated in a Mahamudra sense, you're actually stirring the pot and making more bubbles. Whereas when you're meditating on Mahamudra, a lot of times by allowing things to go right away, that sort of all the sort of background noise of your mind starts to drop down a lot, which really is really, really helpful. And number four is it ripens the mind for Tantric Mahamudra. You have to be able, in Sutric Mahamudra, like First Panchen Lama says, in particular, you need to have a realization of the conventional nature of mind before you can meditate on its ultimate nature. And so what you'll see is if you do enough Mahamudra, even in the context of retreat, you will have a realization of your mind. In other words, you will start to experience your mind as a sheer openness, as a lucid awareness. Now, that's not its emptiness. And many people, as Panchen Lama, mistake that. Just when you're in this spacious, lucid, clear awareness, a lot of people say, hey, I'm enlightened. Oh my God, wow, that was easy. That was only 20 minutes. But what you're actually just seeing is your mind. You have to meditate on the emptiness of the mind. That's the next step for Mahamudra, Dzogchen, or anything else. Just getting the basic awareness itself isn't enough. Because many times we have that, you're fishing on the lake or whatever, daydreaming, watching clouds, and all of a sudden everything gets clear and vivid, but you're still in samsara, needless to say. But if you can do that and have that understanding and that lucid awareness, that really, really helps in your tantric practice, in particular, in ripening for tantric Mahamudra. So you're planting all the seeds. So then what I was just going to say is basically a couple more comments on the different, a couple of the different emptiness schools and how they relate to our understanding of Mahamudra practice here. So the mind-only school will say, like, you can bring this sort of view of emptiness into your Mahamudra practice. Which is one thing is that when you're practicing Mahamudra and you're allowing thoughts to come and go and just sort of being present, again, things seem to be separate from you. There seems to be experiences or mental events that are sort of coming at you. But the most important thing to see when you're doing Mahamudra as a way of sort of understanding emptiness is all of these thoughts or experiences are coming from you. So just like in the Chittamantra Yogacara school, the big teaching of emptiness we get there is that an mind and its object come from the same karmic seed. That in a lay of a jhana, storehouse consciousness, a seed will ripen, and what you'll get is a mind intentionally connected to an object. So, that's just it. Like, any experiences we have in Mahamudra are coming from our karmic seeds. So this alone helps because, as you know, when you're doing Mahamudra, let's say, shopping at Save on Foods or running to catch a streetcar, or if you're lying in the bank or Starbucks and waiting, getting annoyed, the world always seems separate from you, coming at you in opposition to you. But really, if you start to say, hey, in my Mahamudra state where I'm allowing things to go and being present, I'm starting to see that, wow, everything's coming from me. It's one process. Me and the world are arising at each moment at the same time from karmic seeds. This also allows you to have the other sort of Chittamantra or Yogacara insight into emptiness, is that the judgments we have about things, how things appear to us as what they are, depend on our labels or how we interpret them. Okay, so the fact that any particular thing is called what it is called is something which is devoid of existing by definition. In other words, the labels or judgments come from our mind. That's the one thing you get a lot in mind-only school, is they show the relativity of your judgments, the relativity of your labels. Why do things appear a certain way to you? Well, it's the way they appear to you, how you're using them, how you interpret them, what they mean to you. And so that's another thing we can see with Mahamudra, is like, actually, when you can have that sort of bare presence where things are just being allowed to be what they are for you. We hear the bird songs, we feel the wind on our face when we're meditating outside, we see people walking dogs on the sort of park path while we're sitting on a park bench or something meditating. All these things are labeled a certain way, appear to us a certain way, but that's because of us. That's not because of them. How do we translate that Mahamudra insight in our day-to-day lives? Well, it's basically to oppose the sort of common sense, cartoon view we have of life, is that the way things are judged, the way we judge them, is the way that things are in and of themselves. They have to be that way. They're my way. They judge that way. They couldn't be any other way. They're not just a product of karma. They are that way independent of my judging them. And this is, again, this idea that to us, the world seems to be coming at us in an oppositional way. This, of course, is the source of all of our self-grasping, our ego cherishing, and our suffering. And then the last two points I wanted to make, which is in the two levels or two schools of the middle way school, or Madhyamika, which is the Sautrantika school, and the Prasangika school. In other words, the autonomous syllogism school and the middle way consequentialist school. So the lower Madhyamika school, which as a position ends up claiming that conventionally things do have an existence from their own side, but ultimately they don't on an emptiness level. In other words, there is a public world that our judgments and labels can be attached to, one that we all share, okay, that is independent of us. That's a big thing in the lower Madhyamika school, and of course we see that that's incorrect in a bigger sort of Prasangika, or a bigger way. But they have a great analogy to understand emptiness. Okay, and so which is of the magic show. So we don't have this, but they still do it in India. I haven't seen this, but I know people that have, and there's even different philosophy books written on this is quote unquote street magic that you get in India. This was like in the old sort of colonialist British Raj days. They always have you used to get this in Looney Tunes and cartoons where you have the snake charmer, you have the magic guy, and like the rope comes out of the basket and then goes all the way up and he can climb up. So it's just kind of like magic like that. And usually in street magic, what they have is the magician in India will have some kind of a token. He has a stick or a mala or something, and he makes it appear as something. So it's this idea that he has a stick or does something and throws it on the ground, and then it becomes, the example here would be like an elephant. And then everyone's like, oh my God, an elephant. And so here's the thing, here's sort of the analogy being used. You've got the magician, you've got the little object that he's using, and then you've got the audience. And so the object becomes, let's say, the elephant in this case, but it could be anything. But let's just say, okay, the stick becomes the elephant. So the point is that the audience is fooled by the trick. They're fooled by the magic. So they end up seeing the stick become the elephant, or the mala become the elephant, the mala become a piece of gold or something like that. So let's just say stick turning into an elephant. However, the magician still sees the stick, because for him, he's not tricked. He's doing the magic. So he doesn't see any elephant. He just sees the stick. Now, what's interesting, but he can see how they see the elephant. Okay, like that's an important thing, is that he can sort of see the trick that he's conjuring up. Now, the third party to this is that you show up to the trick after it started. So you don't see anything. You don't know what the magician's doing. You just see a crowd and everyone, oh my God. And you sort of come into the crowd. You see everyone standing around, hallucinating or whatever, doing something. And then you see the magician, but you don't know what he's done, right? So from the Satrantika point of view, it's interesting, I have the notes. The audience sees the stick as an elephant. Magic happens because of the conditions present due to the stick and the magic of the magician on one side and the perception of the elephant on the other. There must be something out there appearing to us from one side, a perception of it too cooperating, which creates the object. So in other words, the stick is, from a Satrantika point of view, is the basis for the perception. So it's either the deluded perception of the audience or the correct perception of the magician, who just sees how he's using magic to create an elephant out of a stick. Okay, so from a Satrantika point of view, this is how we should understand our thoughts. Thoughts appear to be happening sort of inherently existing, to be transformed, to be something other than they are. But what we have to see is that, in other words, I'm confusing a little bit. There's objects in the world, and then there's our interpretations of them. Okay, so in other words, whatever, we all can, there's a car, but this is my car, I love it. This is the car that you've always wanted, but I can't afford it. That's another judgment. There's a person who used to have a car like that, broke down all the time, so they hate that car, it traumatizes when they see them. So there's an object, but it's appearing in three different ways for the people perceiving it, right? But the object itself is the basis for that. So the stick creates the elephant. In other words, the deluded perception for people, or the magician has the correct view in the sense that he knows that the stick is being created into an elephant. He sees that the people's judgments are being labeled on an object. Now, you as the person showing up late are from the emptiness point of view, the higher point of view, where there's no person, no magician, no crowd, no stick, no object, because you show up, nothing's happening to you. You're outside of the magic trick. You don't know what's being. See, this is kind of how the analogy works here. So why is this an important flavor of emptiness? This kind of emptiness is what Geshe-ben calls the fifth flavor of emptiness, and I'll talk about this in the next class that we do. The Satrantika view of emptiness is usually, as a Dharma person, how we're living our lives. This is basically a Stoic version of Mahamudra. When you do lojong, which is what we try and do as good Dharma people, this is what you're doing. In other words, this flavor of emptiness of Mahamudra is where we're making lemonade out of lemons. In other words, the world is coming at us in a certain way, that we don't like, we're suffering, and we are transforming it. Okay, so in other words, there is a world independent of us in our day-to-day lives, in the sense, this is the world we're coping with. This is the world we're struggling with. This is the world of going to the job that you don't like, having your mom bug you all the time about picking something up at the store for her, the angry neighbors that are screaming, yelling, and playing music all the time. This is where you as a Dharma person are trying to transform the world into something pure. It's where you're trying, and even to change your judgments, because you have your judgments, which, oh, the asshole neighbor, oh, I hate that guy, oh my God, I just wish I could punch him. Wait a minute, I'm a Buddhist. I have to see him as a good person, as him benefiting me from teaching me patience or whatever. I'm making lemonade out of lemons here. So you see, from the Satrantika point of view, you have an object that you're judging a certain way. Usually what we're doing here is the Mahamudra was seeing, like, initially we're having a negative judgment of things and we're suffering, so we're going to change our judgments. We're going to apply lojong. We're going to see everything sort of as a gift, everything as a teaching, everything as a benefit. We're going to transform everything. We're going to judo flip the world, so to speak. It's coming at you the Aikido way. You get the wrist lock and you put it down. You have done the way of peace in Aikido. You have changed aggressive energy and smoothed it out into peace. So this is, if you notice, I mean, speaking for myself, a lot of times just going through life, regular working class Joe, this is the kind of Mahamudra that I'm doing. When I'm doing Mahamudra, I'm finding that I'm irritating and fighting in the world in my mind about stuff. Oh my God, I'm at work. I hate these passengers I have to deal with. Okay, no, I'm a Dharma guy. I have to remember the emptiness of this, and I have to transform this. I have to have the right pure perception in my mind. Okay, so this, as we can see, is a very helpful way of doing things. And even watching your mind, Mahamudra, where you're allowing thoughts and you're reacting, you're being negative, and now you're changing your judgment, you're changing, it's like the magic trick here in your mind, right? This is beneficial. This is a fabulous way of doing Mahamudra. I'll speak for myself. Most of the time that I'm just in my life doing my Dharma practice, it's kind of like this. But let's take it deeper now, which is the final view of emptiness. Let's drop the floor out on this. And this is to add what Sue was talking about, is what happens is when we see the data or the object that's the label for the base as being non-inherent like anything else. Okay, so our final view of emptiness is what allows us to create a Buddha paradise. Okay, the fact that objects are void of existing from their own side through the identity rather than existing simply through words and thoughts. So basically, things, because they have no identity whatsoever, can be established by words and thoughts, but that even words and thoughts don't exist inherently here. So the difference between these two flavors of emptiness, between the two schools of Madhyamika here, both schools describe existence of an object as an object in a combo of something appearing to us, in other words, the object and the judgment, and us thinking of it in a certain way. The difference is that the final view of emptiness here, the object is as much of a product of the process on down infinitely. There is no object at all the way down. Nothing comes from its own side. Okay, nothing in this way. This does not in any way deny the existence of objects. So basically, this takes out the world to be transformed. Okay, so what's interesting is when we're dealing with the lower Madhyamika view, when we're dealing with trying to transform our thoughts still, we believe that there's still thoughts separate from us coming at us. What happens is when the final view of emptiness, when we see everything as our projection, including the base for the label, including the objects themselves that we're actually reacting to in trying to change our judgments of, then it divides all the way through. You don't have any indivisible remainder. Okay, now if that's the case, then everything is just a projection of your mind. Okay, now again, if you're Tantra projecting that you've always already been enlightened. It's almost like you're discovering the purity or the enlightened state of all things. So this is where the final state of Mahamudra is the most liberatory, sort of the highest form of freedom of understanding the emptiness of our own mind. Okay, because at this point, there's nothing, there's no longer anything to transform. Things are always already having been transformed, right? And you see the flip over where we get this version of Mahamudra, Sutra Mahamudra, instantly leads us into Tantra or KRIM or generation stage practice. This form of Mahamudra can flip over instantly into our view of pure view, into seeing ourselves as a deity in a Buddha paradise or whatever. So this is what joins the two Mahamudras together, is this particular view on emptiness, the middle way consequentialist school, the Prasangika way. And I remember it's actually in the teaching here, what Geshe Michael said, which is really sweet, is he said, what percentage, I remember him saying this, I wrote the notes, think about it, what percentage of what happens to us in the present moment comes from karma. And yeah, so well, wait a bit here. So how does it, like, basically, what percentage of your experience is from you and what percentage is from the world? How would you determine that? Like, basically, would it be the Lojong idea is that 50% of your experience is from the world and 50% of you? In other words, there's an object or a situation, then there's how you take it or how you see it, right? But what if it isn't 50%? What if it's 30%, 70%? Like, how would you ever determine how much is you and how much is the world? If the world really is in its entirety is appearing the way you're setting it up karmically. So if that's the case, you see, the problem here is, where do you assign the responsibility, right? Like, how much of this is my responsibility? Like, is there a little bit that's everyone else's fault? Is there a little bit that's the world's fault? Or is it really, in the big picture, karmically, all of my, I don't want to say fault, let's say responsibility, all of my projection? So this is the existential crisis here, is that, like, if everything is your choice, is your projection, then it's all your fault. But then that's, flip it over on its back when you see, well, if everything is this, then there's this infinite freedom that I have to change things around, because literally nothing's standing in my way at this point. There's no limit. There's no boundary. Everything is infinite, right? In other words, like Spinoza would say, you know, there's a line between me and God. It's a line in infinity. The issue is, where am I on the line? There's no wall that I hit where it's like, I'm the creature, there's the creator, I don't get. All I have to do is keep shifting myself further along the line towards divinity through my own grace and practices, and then I can become this. Of course, this is, you can see, definitely not a Semitic tradition, because obviously Jews, Christians, and Muslims don't think you can become God. But from a Buddhist point of view, we do. That's the difference, is that you can become divine. Why? Because you've already been divine. You're discovering this, the emptiness of your own mind. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. Sort of the big crescendo there. And just before we end here, any quick comment or question in particular, because I know understanding those two Madhyamika schools, the difference between them is important. We'll come back to this, of course, but anything, or is everybody okay? Looks like everybody's okay then. Okay, good. Well, yes.
Just a comment, you know, and we hear this a lot in our training, right? And but it's a pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Like, pill to swallow in what sense? Like, just the responsibility?
Like a tough pill to swallow. The idea of the responsibility, and I love that expression. The world is coming from you and not at you. You know, but it gets responsibility again, right? And I think of all the conflicted dynamics I hang on to in my mind.
Mm.
You know,
of course. I mean,
And
this is why I love Zen, where they say they have the four sayings where, Dharma gates are infinite. I vow to enter each one. Sentient beings are infinite. I vow to save each one. Like, it's an impossible task that you have to do here. And the bristling at it, the feeling that it's unfair or too much or why me, that's your ego, literally, because it's, hey, I just want to have fun. Like, leave me alone. Why can't I just relax here? But it's precisely your ego that's bristling at that, and your ego that doesn't see what's coming. Your ego that doesn't see that you can't stop what's coming, which is old age, sickness, and death, and you repeating the whole thing over and over and over again, right? But I was telling, like Rob and I were saying, what you get, it was in a movie, a Hollywood movie that remake of Clash of the Titans. Anyway, I don't want to go on, but there's a great line where Perseus, who's a demigod, wants to do this impossible Greek myth, Odyssey to whatever, stop, the evil monster and stuff like this. And he wants to do it as a person to show that people can do this and not as a demigod, as Zeus's son, as kind of like a half god, because it's kind of like cheating and not fair and blah, blah, blah. And then one of his friends, they're never going to be able to finish this quest. It's impossible, because it said, you can't do this as a person. You can only do this as a demigod or a god. It's impossible as a person. Right? So the whole point with Tantra is basically saying this. You can't do this as you. Only a deity can do this, which is why you visualize yourself as a deity. Okay? Only a deity can get enlightened and be enlightened, not you. If you think Patricia or Matthew or anyone else can do this, you're wrong. You can't. Right? But what's interesting is that there's no difference between the two. The deity's fictional. It's a mythological construct, just like you are right now. Right? You just have to set switch over to the other one that can do it. Right? That's what's so cool. Anyway, yeah, I'll
now
leave
I
it.
really need to take a pill.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, yeah, Ron?
Yeah, so I wanted to respond to that because since you mentioned that to me last week, like you talked about that last week, where you just the Clash of the Titans, and about you as a samsaric being, as Rob or Matthew or whoever, you can't win. But like the Clash of the Titan thing, if you make yourself a deity, the deity can do it. And so I've been thinking about that every day. That's been really helpful for me. Because in a way, of course, it's the same as we've been learning for years if you do deity practice. But it really resonated with me. And because as Rob is, if I find daily challenges, life challenges, and you get stuck or you feel overwhelmed. And it's like, oh, I don't know how to deal with this. You let it go. You can't deal with it. You have to let the deity do it. And I find that very freeing. And so then, yeah, that was very important to me and very helpful in the sense to, if you equate Rob or samsara, like that's part of our teachings, right? Samsara, you can't find lasting happiness in samsara. There's pleasures, there's good things happen in samsara, of course. You go on vacation, you fall in love, or you have a nice pizza or whatever, that you can enjoy that, but it's samsara. It's not like lasting peace, lasting, the happiness which we're trying to achieve through our Dharma practice and trying to become enlightened. So if you think as with Rob or Sue or Marcia or Matthew, whoever, Patricia, equals samsara. So you can't win with samsara. So let it go. Just give up Rob. Like you said, it's the ego. Rob is the ego. Give it up. Let it go. Forget about it. It's okay you can't win, because you can't. By definition, you can't win. So
and that's why Mahamudra becomes Tantric Mahamudra. Because how do you do this? How do you do this, like you say, where you do it as a god? Peer view. That's peer view is the first step you do for generation stage of Tantra, because that's taking the result into the path. And this is what the idea of, like Michael talks a lot about gardening with the idea of the Prasangika view. We're just planting seeds to allow them to ripen karmically. So
Mhm.
everything changes once you have pure view and you're planting seeds as a deity, because only a deity can do this.
Right.
And
Yeah.
remember, what is the seeds? You're visualizing yourself as a Buddha in a Buddha universe, which will end up, because you're projecting, becoming true. So it's fascinating how that's kind of how it works. And that's how you're able to do that.
Yeah,
So
it's wonderful. And so yeah, just transform your view into pure
Yeah.
view, which is our practice. And it seems like, well, that's so hard to do, that's impossible. But that's what we do, every day. If we're doing deity yoga practice, achieving my Tara or whatever, it's like I instantly become Tara. So they don't say I'm gradually becoming Tara. You instantly become Tara. Because it's like you said, it's like a William Blake thing.
Yeah.
Everything is already divine. So have pure view. And yeah, so anyways.
Blake says the famous quote, because Jim Morrison used it for the band, but like, remember, he said, when the doors of perception, your senses become purified, everything appears as it really is, which is infinite or pure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's William Blake. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it already is. It's just we're so obscured or weighed down by Rob and all my conditioning, everything.
Yeah.
So we don't see it. But yeah, you wipe the mirror clean, you'll see it.
Perfect. Good. Let's end on that. That's very auspicious. So thank you so much. And thank you for contributing, both of you, for that, for questions and comments. That's excellent. So let's take a moment to dedicate this through the blessings of all holy beings, the truth of karma, power of our pure superior intention, bodhicitta. May all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled, and may the doors of perception be cleansed. Okay, thank you. Just press stop here. See you next time.